Well, hi again, and welcome to Coffee with Craig. I'm Craig Hamilton Parker, psychic medium. And if you've not been to the show before, what I basically do is talk about world events, this crazy world we live in, and what's happening in the world, give my spiritual perspective from the standpoint of a psychic medium, but also make some predictions for you about what's going to happen in the future. And most importantly, take your questions too, because we're going to be dealing today with some of the big events that are happening in the world, particularly with the elections around the world. I'm going to talk a little bit about Modi, a little bit about Putin, a bit about what's going on with the Trump, some of the stuff in the UK, and of course, take your important questions. So stay with us and welcome to Coffee with Craig. Well, hi guys. I'm glad to see you joining me. Some of you in the comments already coming in, but we'll deal with some of your comments a little bit later on. But I share with you some of my thoughts first of all on today's date, which is the 7th of May, 2024. So I'll make a few predictions today as well. So you've got the date, so you can always check me back again later when you have a look at the videos again. And talking about that, also, I notice at the moment one of the predictions I made at the beginning of 2024 seems to have happened today. You might remember I mentioned that would be a massive, great banking hack happening in the UK. I mentioned that in October 2020. I think where 2023, right? So I said there was going to be a banking hack in 2020, in 2024, in 2023, and here it is today, happening in the news. You'll see that there's been a massive one here in the UK, and I said that China would be behind this hack, and it looks like it's happened exactly as I said. China is hacking the UK banking system. So anyway, so they're denying that, and I noticed it went from front page news and it dropped down the news a little bit earlier today. So makes you wonder what's going on. I think they're too scared to admit that China is tripping everything up in the background, that we're secretly at war with China, and nobody admits it, do they? That's too many brown envelopes, as they used to call it, too much money changing hands around the world to keep China in its place in the world. And everybody's scared to challenge them, apart from a few brave politicians. And let's hope that challenge comes about soon, because I think it's a very dangerous situation. Nothing against the people of China, particularly the people of Hong Kong and the Uyghur people and all the rest that are suppressed by the communist regime there. But horror at the politicians in the West that support whatever they can just to make sure they get their votes. So talking about votes, there's been a lot of votes this year, particularly lots of elections coming up this year, and we've been seeing a few quite important changes happening. Now, I'm going to first talk a little bit about President Modi in India, because I think it's pretty self-evident that he's going to win that election. I have said it quite some while back about Modi that I feel he would win, and the astrologers have also felt that he's going to have a very strong position. I remember before he came to power, the first time, I remember we commented on this channel about what some of the NAADI oracles had said about Modi, and they predicted that Modi would be good for India generally, and I suppose he has in many ways. At least India's got a powerful-ish leader. Not always a good thing. We've seen many bad, powerful leaders around the world, haven't we? But I think he does have the good of his country at heart. He's going astrologically, he's going through a Mahadasha, which is an important one for him, which has been quite a long one because it's for Mars, the Lagna of Mars, going back to, I think it was 11, yeah, it was November 2020, going right the way through until about October sometime in 2027. So quite a long period of very powerful energy for him. So I feel it's going to be quite a landslide victory, even more so than they think. They think it's not going to be as big as it was last time round, but I feel there's going to be quite a landslide victory for him this time. And I see quite a few things happening under his watch, actually, for India. There's going to be a lot of suppression, I suppose, of the Islamic minority, and they're going to lose a lot of their rights. Now, he has done some of those things already, but I'm seeing this as escalating quite a lot, and there's going to be a lot of complaints from the minority groups in India that this is not a good democracy. We're suppressing voices that are not pro-Hindu. So I do see that happening, and I see him kind of becoming more and more religious as time goes on. He is already quite strongly religious, but I'm seeing the building of many Hindu temples. We might even see, I don't see him pulling down the Taj Mahal, but we might even start seeing things being put up, for example, museums and things saying that Taj Mahal was built on an old Shiva temple, and this was not an Islamic sacred site, but it's originally a Hindu sacred site. We're going to see some very contentious type of things like that. And there's going to be a very big religious revival happening in India because of this Hindu religious revival, I say. So that's going to be happening. He's going to reverse the trends, I feel, in India. They've had quite a lot of economic slowdown recently, and there's been quite a lot of unemployment in India. And I know their opposition there have been throwing a lot of stuff at him about that, but I see in India an increase in the economics looking better, unemployment dropping. And I feel that Modi is going to, even to the time when he actually fully retires from politics in the years to come, he'll still have a very strong sway over Indian politics, even when he's retired. And I see him becoming an actual Brahmin priest in the end of his career. In the latter years, I predict Modi will become a Brahmin priest, and he will have strong influence upon the politics of India, even when he's out of power. And I also see, as you know, I predict that Donald Trump will be the president of the United States, even with what's happening at the moment. And Trump and Modi together are going to challenge China's dominance in the years ahead, in part of his period of power ahead. I think Modi deserves a full video on him at some point in India. But these are some of my thoughts that I've been getting and feelings I've been getting about the future of India. And I feel there would actually, during that period coming up in the next, probably this is going to be in the next couple of years, 2025, 2026, I feel there is going to be a conflict between India and an Islamic country, a direct conflict between India and an Islamic country. Now, which one that is difficult to say. I think it's going to be Pakistan. I think there's going to be an India-Pakistan conflict. Maybe it's going to be over Kashmir. But I also saw something with it too, as if I saw Indian troops going into Afghanistan. Now, that's a very unlikely thing to be happening, but I feel I saw Indian troops moving into Afghanistan. Whether this is permanent or temporary, I don't know. I had a feeling it was more of a temporary thing. But I think this is going to be some significant tensions with Indian foreign policy in the next few years. And particularly with, America and India against China, there'll be tensions, and not necessarily warfare, but I think there's going to be quite some serious tensions, just as we're seeing serious tensions developing between China and America over Taiwan. And I feel that Modi, actually, after his death, he will be considered as one of India's best ever leaders since Gandhi. And people will look back to him as being a great leader, even though I know many people will find that awful for me to say that now because, he's a contentious figure. But I feel that he would have started the trend of India into a much more dominant world position. So there's some thoughts on that. I'll take some of your thoughts on it later, guys. I see comments coming in here as I'm talking. We'll have a look at those in a minute and get your questions on some of these things and other thoughts. Now, also, we have the votes going on in Russia, of course, for Putin, who inevitably wins every time, doesn't he? And my thoughts about this too, because I was seeing if I could see something more with Putin and what's going to happen with him particularly, and how that will affect the war in Ukraine. Because my feelings are about this is that the whole business of Ukraine is not really Russia against Ukraine. It's kind of Putin against Ukraine, because from Putin's point of view, if you can kind of get into his head and feel, what would I see if I saw the world through Putin's eyes? I see a man there who wants to make a legacy. And I feel a man there that wants that legacy to be the restoration of the old USSR. We'll have Hungary back, we'll have Poland back, and so forth, which is a failed dream, I feel. But I feel there's a lot of this in his mindset. The man has, I feel, got certain amount of kind of mental conditions. I feel. I know he's still actually genuinely popular in Russia, even though the polls will always make it overwhelmingly win. But I do feel that he has something hidden there. I feel there's a hidden health condition still with Putin. I feel that he's not going to have a long life. I feel he's reasonably old now, but I don't feel he's got a great deal of time left, put it that way. And I feel he's already had a heart condition that's not been talked about and not been mentioned. And I feel as if this has affected him, something's happened with his brain with it. I don't feel he's fully functioning for some reason. So, as far as Ukraine goes, I feel in the next 2 months, so May, June, possibly into July, I feel there's going to be a major push from Ukraine. I feel it's going to push through to the Donetsk area, all around there. They will take Donetsk, if I pronounce Donetsk, if I pronounce it right. Ukraine will take Donetsk and move forward beyond that. I feel they're going to make an incisor sort of movement into Russia, a sudden and unexpected advance. And I see that kind of almost splitting the Russian lines. In 2024, later, after the November elections in America, when Trump is president again, I feel that the deal he wants to do with Putin to just stop the war won't work. I feel it will fail. That promise he's made that I can stop the war in a day won't work, because I'm seeing Europe getting more involved later on. Once Ukraine starts to get the upper hand, I feel it's like some of the European countries want to share in the glory. I feel Poland might even get involved in this, because I saw Polish aircraft over Russia, or over Ukraine, maybe over Russia too. But I see something like that happening. And this is all to do with Putin's lust for power. I feel Putin will fall from power. I get the feeling he's got a little bit longer, 2026. And it's going to be a combination of both illness and a coup, bringing Putin down eventually. Always hard to time these things. But I see those will be two factors that will come simultaneously with Putin when his time comes. And then there's other things to happen for Russia too. Like I've said before, I see an interesting changes of leadership. I'll make a full video on that later on. I don't want to cram it all into one show, as it were. The UK elections, I've said that Rishi Sunak will be removed from power. That's all over the press at the moment now. I said that would happen, but it hasn't happened yet. Now, am I right or am I wrong with that? If I'm right with that, it's going to be an absolute neck and neck election here in the UK, with a possibility of a Tory victory. I feel if Sunak goes. If I'm wrong with that and Sunak stays, I feel that Labour would not get a full a sweeping victory like the Blair days. They're talking here in the UK of saying, oh, it's going to be Labour all the way and they're going to sweep the board. But I don't think it's quite as clear cut as that. Labour, as I said quite some while ago, would make major gains in Scotland. You remember I did quite some time ago say that Nicola Sturgeon would be removed from power through corruption, which happened. And I said after that, Labour would regain in Scotland, which looks like it's going to happen. So that's a prediction I made quite some time back. But although the press have all been saying it's going to be a huge Labour victory, I think it's going to end up as a hung parliament between Labour being held in position by the Liberals, which would be probably one of the worst of both worlds, unless Rishi Sunak goes, because I still get a feeling something's going to happen major in the Tory party. They haven't got the courage to do it yet, but I think they're going to force to do it. They say a week's a long time in politics, so I think there's a lot of time left to go before that happens. And the shaky deal between the Liberal Democrats and Labour, by the way, will fail. So if Labour get in, I think there's something that might even drop them from power quite soon, ungovernable, and we might get a loss of confidence. So it's not as clear cut as I think the press are saying with that. So I'm sorry, in some of what I'm saying, there's a little bit vague because I'm still got this feeling about Rishi Sunak, and if that's right, then I feel that my predictions might have to sort of be kind of. I just see a completely confused period ahead with this. So I'm not seeing it clearly myself. I do feel Trump's going to get in, though, even though at the moment they're throwing everything, including the kitchen sink at him. They're going to try at the moment to prosecute Trump for falsifying business documents. That's basically, as far as I understand it, the main thrust of the argument in court at the moment. But I don't think that's going to work. I just feel he's going to get through this. They might try to reprimand him for speaking out and say, I'll put you in jail. But I don't think they'll put him in jail. Not for that anyway. They'd have to have a much stronger case to try to jail Trump. And Trump's the sort of guy, isn't he, that would even go, perhaps even win a victory from jail. But I don't actually see that happening. But I do feel, as I said right way back, I said that the huge legal wrangles on the way up to the American elections. I was saying this 2 years ago, that the next time round, it's going to be just legal all the way. And it has been that. And obviously, he's fighting for delays and things like that. But this current case that we've got at the moment, I keep seeing Harvey Weinstein, that horrible guy from who did all those terrible things in Hollywood. And I feel that they're going to have a similar conclusion to what happened to him, because the prosecution there felt that there was improperly sort of introduced an irrelevant and unduly prejudicial testimony brought in. And I feel I think the Trump case is going to swing on that. I think they're going to say it is prejudicial testimony is being brought in here. And because of the huge political complications around the case, I know it's not straightforward business case anymore. Falsifying business documents is one thing, but when you've got all this political stuff in the mix, camera went back again. When we get all this political stuff in the mix, then I think what we have here is it's going to be thrown out of court eventually. Even though they might sort of say he has falsified documents, I feel at the end of the day he walks away from this one. Okay. So those are my main thoughts. I mean, there's so much going on at the moment that we could talk forever on some of these issues, and most of them deserve their own video. But I'm going to have a look now at you guys' comments. Let me just see. Oh, I see my coffee with Craig has disappeared. Let's put that back up again. And let's have a look, guys. So let's have a look at some of your comments. Now, I've got hundreds, literally, of comments coming in here. There's one. Will Weinstein be Epsteined? I think he's going to get away with it on medical grounds. I think Weinstein's going to he's going to kick it down the road so far that he's going to get away with things on medical grounds. I mean, he walks on a Zimmer frame, which is a complete mock-up, I think, complete fake that is. But I feel that there's something with that. I don't think we're going to get full justice with Weinstein. Um, so some of you like Modi. I think he's got a lot of benefits to what he does because at least he does what he says and he says what he does, doesn't he? And he does what, and that people may not like it, but it's the squirmy ones that we don't like. The slippery eels like we've got here in the UK. They all say one thing and do others, and they're all in that pocket of China and the rest of it. So that always worries me with what's going on in the background. What's that one? That looks an interesting comment. I haven't read it yet, Kat. The way things are going, the whole of Parliament may be removed. I don't know why. It's just a feeling. Most people have lost all faith and interest in party politics in the UK and how it's run. Haven't we all? You know, we look at either side and we got, like I said, it's like a handful of eels. Nobody's given us the truth. All you need is one person to come forward and give people something to believe in, give people a lodestar to follow, and they could sweep the board, you know. And the voices that are like that are all cancelled. You see them come up, they say something, and they're accused of being too far left or too far right and not PC enough, or they destroy them for some other agenda. And this is what's happening in American politics too. The real voices are being silenced all the time because too many people have their finger in the pie, don't they? That's what's happening there. Got with that with the Trump business. If Trump has lied, how can anyone reasonably assume all these people lie? If he's charged, then they should all be. And I often say with this, what about the Hunter Biden laptop? Why has that gone so quiet all the time when there's so many issues being addressed there and about money that was actually being used and from China again to influence politics? I mean, such dangerous stuff, don't you think, guys? You know, so quite a few right-wing kind of views here. Labour have destroyed my village. Lefties always do damage. Not always. I think they've got good intent sometimes, don't you? But they always say that the socialism always works. Socialism works up to the point you run out of other people's money, and that's the problem with it. It's not usually self-sustaining. Although I think the Labour doctrines at the moment are saying that, you know, we're going to be more business friendly, which might appeal to people and the voter. So, but like I said, I think there's an undercurrent in the country. I don't think people are quite going the way that the government say, or the papers say, the media say. And Khan, oh my God, I find him an absolutely horrific figure. But isn't it a bit scary when the strength of what is often the Islamic vote is becoming so strong? When we see, oh, what's his name? The one that was on Big Brother, fella, I forgot, Scottish guy, gone now. But when we see small Islamic parties starting to form, when we're seeing British politics being very, very strongly influenced by people wanting to talk about the Palestinian agenda. I mean, what has that to do in the slightest with British internal politics and voting for our people? It was a foreign policy issue. I mean, there's other just as big and perhaps even more important foreign policy issues. So I think it's very dangerous when we start getting these things, and also when some of these parties claim that Islamic law must trump British law, and that is when we start to get quite dangerous politics. I think I'd hate the idea of any politics governed entirely by religion, which you could argue that case with Dodi, with Modi there. Princess Diana, you working with me again? Sorry. So what else we got here? But like I said, the war in Ukraine, I think that Europe's going to get involved later on. It's almost as if they're letting Ukraine do the dirty work, and when they kind of see a bit of a victory on the way, I get the feeling it's like I'd like to sort of get a bit of glory from this. So I'm getting the feeling that France, Germany, Poland, Britain might all even have feet on the ground in there. Maybe not in active fighting, but in support, as it were, and training, as it were. I think there's a lot more to come with that. Ukraine, I feel ultimately Ukraine will kind of win, but nobody ever wins in these wars, and whether they keep all their territory or not, I think is very debatable. I think they won't get all their territory back, but when I think ultimately both sides will try to claim a victory when it stops. But this might be something that go on further. And I tell you what, also, and this was another thing that came to me. I forgot to mention this the other day. Ukraine's flaring up, but I see Georgia flaring up, and those states around Georgia in the past where we saw all that flare up. I'm seeing a second front for Russia, and I feel that second front is going to be around Georgia area. There's going to be two wars they're going to be fighting in Russia. This might even be one of the deciding factors that make Russia have to rethink about waging wars that they can't afford. Well, this is one that I really should do a full video on. The whole thing that's happening in our schools. I think most level-minded people are horrified when you hear, for example, we heard about our grandchild saying at school, we're not allowed to call the teacher miss. We've got to use neutral gender pronouns. I think, well, I wouldn't know where to begin with that. And it makes you feel very angry, I think, that they're pushing that onto children. Nutty people, if you ask me. These gender enthusiasts, I think, are a danger. And people might mock it and laugh at it sometimes, but it's doing serious damage on susceptible kids that are being given so much nonsense at the moment and told to hate our own country as well. It's like everything that's ever in here in Britain anyway, and I'm sure it's the same in America, tell us, and in Australia. I mean, what's happening to our education system? It's like it's gone so far left or liberal or whatever we want to call it, that kids are being told things that are completely erroneous. Fair enough, America wins the war through Hollywood, and you see, okay, yes, it's always the slant. Whoever wins the war often wins the media war. But nowadays, we're getting absolute, we're getting facts and things turned around in such a way that we completely, the English history, for example, is sneered upon, and yet that we ought to be looking for that for our greatest inspiration. And when you see people like Khan, for example, who I feel I think that man hates our country. I know he's born in our country, but I just feel he hates it. He's got a sort of a thing about it, and so many others do. Why aren't these people integrating? And why isn't the education system saying you've got to conform to us? We can't have religious schools. You can't have that. You've got to conform to the basic standards of what being British is. And none of us have the courage to stand up to what that is. Same in America. What is it to be an American? Same in Australia. What is it to be an Australian? They say, oh, it's not to be a white Caucasian middle-aged man or older man or whatever it is. That's all terrible. No, all the great advances in our countries have been made by multiple people, and we should recognize everybody, but we don't want to keep skewering it as a sort of a hate thing of our own countries. And it's happening to all the Western countries. This is this wokey educational stuff that's going on in the background, and a strong religious agenda that I think is dangerous. Look what's happening in India there with Islam and Hinduism already. And look what happened in the Baltic with Islam, and it don't work somehow. You've got to integrate people. Once people are integrated, it can run smoothly. So yeah, there's my thoughts anyway. And I'm sorry if that sounds a little bit strong, but I think nobody speaks out. People are so scared to talk about what I think is common sense. Yeah, I think that's probably the way it's gonna go. Yeah. Um, I'm not gonna do the raw ones now. That's one I think is better for me and Jane to do the raw stuff later. I think something I keep trying to think of things to do for the Friday show. So if you've got some stuff for that, want to put it ideas for the me and Jane bits, I'm always grateful for your comments on that. Um, So let's just get in comments now. Ban TikTok in the UK. I think that's not a bad idea as well. What do you think? Should we ban it? Again, look, after we've just had all this business, like I said at the beginning of the show, where I said that I predicted that a Chinese hack on British banking, on world banking, I thought it was, but a huge one in the press here. So that's probably what I was seeing. If that's happening, can we trust things like TikTok? Can we trust any Chinese uh, technology without it being thoroughly checked for spyware and the rest? If they can hit the MOD, they can hit anything, can't they? It wasn't directly the MOD, I would correct myself. It was one of the major suppliers to the MOD, but that would have been a company that would have been massively scrutinized, wouldn't it? So they get into the worst, it's dangerous. We have enemies within. Oh, here's a China person, sorry. Hi, I'm from China. So how should we deal with the difficulties of Chinese society, such as economic collapse and the people's livelihood difficulties? Well, I need to do a full one again on China, but you've seen some of my ones that I've said about China before, and I feel that there's going to be a complete implosion in China. I've spoken about this before. It's teetering on the edge of economic disaster. China is now. The world's economies are kind of doing a boost at the moment. I feel the world economies between now and November are going to do a real big surge forward. Reason? Because of the votes. Everybody wants to boost their economies just before everybody votes for you. So the Democrats will want to push everything into making the economy go fast, even if it's dodgy doing that. Same here in the UK. Let's give you big tax cuts, buy your vote, which will make the economy boom for a bit, but it takes it to a cliff edge. Worldwide, that's kind of happening because we've got so many economies around the world surging forward all at once because people want your votes, and then it reaches a cliff edge. And I think when China hits that cliff edge, particularly with the housing issues you've got there, particularly with the break in manufacturing that's going to happen with the rise of other countries, particularly if people like Trump get in and barriers come down again, I think what will happen in China, I think there will be a new kind of revolution. But just like the umbrella revolution in Hong Kong, where the people tried to do it peacefully and failed, but they did it peacefully, I can see that sort of thing happening again. And I see the break, particularly in China, in the west of the country, is breaks away from the east of the country first. And ultimately, I see China breaking into multiple countries, cantons or whatever, with like a very good thing, which brings in good philosophy. And like I said, good politics. And like I've said, I feel Xi Jinping will ultimately fall. Okay, but what can you do at the moment? I think you can just keep your values and keep connecting with the West like this too, because knowledge is power. The people of Russia, they don't know any better than Putin. It's been so censored so much, they've got no access. But the Chinese have found back doors to connect to what's going on in the world press, and can see some of the poor quality news that we have here. So I was just going to I'll take one more, I think. Talking here about the Poland thing, because I do feel Poland will get involved in the war, and it's I think Poland will help, genuinely help, because it wants to help with seeing the Russia being tamed. Because if not, it's Poland next, isn't it? And it's the Baltics next, and it could be they could be marching into Tallinn or something like that. And I feel that the Polish will do something, and I think it's going to be within the next 9 months or so. We'll see some Polish involvement of airplanes, because it's the air support that the country needs. Okay, I think I'm going to finish there, because I can only do so much each time. I've got to do one of these each week, so I did it all in one show. It wouldn't be quite the same, would it? So I do thank you for coming and joining me here today, folks. There's a few other things. I've also, I do the patrons, so we always appreciate you guys that are patrons and help here. And so there's my Patreon link in the description. But I've also doing the the YouTube version of it, where you can join the channel and you can get little extras. So I've got preparing loads and loads of videos at the moment. They're all going to be put up as little extra videos that go up for the YouTube section. So if you join as a YouTube, you can join as a gold member or silver member or bronze member here, and you'll get little extras, extra content things, which is all going to be uploaded, little extras, extra predictions as well, and little extras from our shows and things like that. And where the patrons is also great, come and join that as well, because that supports the Craig and Jane show mainly, supports our studio, and with that one we also try to build a community around that, so it's more of a community sort of base. So there's slightly different. So thanks for coming. Let's go and put a few of your comments up, just see if there are any interesting comments. Anything, sort of thank yous and things coming up now, guys. Yeah, okay, well, okay, I'll put your thank yous up. Thanks guys for coming, and I'll see you again soon, and I'm going to say bye for now in a moment to you. Yes. Oh, and don't forget, I've got some interesting workshops as well. I always forget to mention those, but I'm doing some workshops that are really popular. We really had some good fun with them last time. So come and have a look at the workshops too, which I've got on the site here. And on my website, you can see it up in the corner of the screen. Go and have a look there. You can get your readings. You can buy my books and all that stuff. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye for now, folks. See you soon. Bye. If you look back at my earlier predictions, and in particular the predictions I made on the newspaper, The Sun's website, I did actually say on there, the actual words were, there will be a flu epidemic linked to bioterrorism. And my thoughts are that Liz Truss will make it to the final, be the next PM. I think she will actually have a final battle between her and Rishi Sunak. We've not seen the full end of Boris Johnson either, I tell you. But Rishi Sunak actually will eventually, I feel, be the next leader of the Conservatives. So I think there's going to be a few conflicts that Britain's going to be drawn into, including I think Russia is going to take some moves against Ukraine. I think she will make it past her platinum jubilee, which comes up this year. But I think after that, we'll see a sudden and quick deterioration in the Queen's health. And I think we might lose the Queen towards the end of 2022. There's going to be a huge backlash from over the Netflix programs and screening, because I feel it comes out at a bad time. Charles will come to become King Charles, but his reign, I feel, will be short. I said that Prince Charles would be hit by an egg. And of course, there it is, all in the press today. Marvellous person she is. She does something extraordinary that could even put her life a little bit at risk with the way she did this. Okay. Is there something also there that's not been spoken about fully? Did they also discover something with Kate that wasn't quite right? A huge swarm of people knocking the doors of Europe and America. And I feel that Ukraine conflict is going to be a kind of a grinding conflict that goes on and on. I also feel that there's something going to happen in the Middle East as well. I feel as if there's going to be a sudden and unexpected thing happen in the Middle East. So I feel they're going to take it into their own hands, and I feel we're going to get a strike from Israel. This is going to be one of the significant things in 2023.